at Joel Klatt, covering the draft for the NFL Network this weekend in Pittsburgh, PA. All right, listen, nobody gets March Madness bracket right. I probably miss on 9 of those. Was there anything that jumped out to you there in the first 15 picks?
No, I think that these pieces could fall a lot of different ways. And I do think the one thing that we're not expecting, and it's really tough to mock, is trades, because there's a few of these teams, Colin, that I think would be happy to move down, to be quite honest. I think the Browns probably the most likely candidate. I wouldn't put it past the Cardinals to move down, actually, at 3. In particular, I think you nailed the first 2. I think the Jets are going to look for a player that can help them next year, because if you draft Arvell Reese, that is a little bit more of a project because he was only a 1-year starter, and there's a lot of potential there, obviously, for the future. But remember, they need someone that can come in and play now, or else they're just drafting players for the next regime. I mean, that's kind of where we're at with the Jets. And so I think they're going to want Bailey because of that. Then it becomes a question at 3. I think that there's going to be some interest in that 3rd pick for Jeremiah Love, because at that point, he's the best player, in particular on offense, on the board. I think some teams might want to move up in that position. And I think the Cardinals would be happy to move down. And that's where it gets interesting for me. And then the Caleb Downs conversation, I think, starts, because you start thinking about value. I think you put it actually, normally I come on here and we argue about a lot of things, but what you just said about safety was really accurate. And in particular, a guy that can play in so many different spots on the field. I would just point out a couple of things that a lot of people have not talked about with Caleb Downs, and I covered him extensively over the last few years, obviously, with Ohio State. Number 1, this guy as a true freshman had 100 tackles at Alabama for Nick Saban. And led them in tackles. He goes to Ohio State, was immediately the best defender on the field for a national championship team, and they built the entire schematics around him. After that mid-year loss to Oregon in Eugene, they revamped the entire defense specifically for Caleb to put him more in the middle of the field and allow his instincts to be more impactful. Then he played for another defensive coordinator in his 2nd year at Ohio State, and Matt Patricia. So think about this. This guy with these amount of instincts and this IQ has played in 3 different defenses in 3 years, and he's still the smartest player on the field. One of the comps that I like, but people shy away from, is Ed Reed. And the reason is because it's one thing to be very smart, do your job on the field, and then kill it on the whiteboard and really understand football when you're explaining it or talking about it. It's another thing to allow those instincts and that intelligence and that preparation to show up on the field. You see, Caleb triggers outside of the scheme based on what the offense is doing. And this is one of the things that Matt Patricia and I talked about a lot last year, is that Caleb would do things completely outside of the structure of the defense, specifically because of certain formations and tendencies that the offense had. And you can't teach that. And that's a very Ed Reed style of thing. The other aspect of Caleb's game that I think really is going to be enticing, in particular for a John Harbaugh or one of these creative defensive coordinators, is, Colin, think about all the disguises you can use and have because of Downs and that intellect. He can line up anywhere, but then play any position from any part of the field. Very similar to Ed Reed. Ben Roethlisberger used to always talk about playing Ed Reed, and he would say, I could never understand what they were in, because he would be in the box, but then play half safety all of a sudden. And that's something that Caleb can do. And that disguise aspect of his game, I think, is highly valuable.
So there's always somebody that drops in the draft. And mine ended up being Sonny Styles and here's the reason. In an average draft, look at the positions that would get drafted ahead of him. Quarterback, edge rusher, tackles, best safety in a long time, and skill players, running back, wide receiver. Well, that's what the league's become. And, you and I, we're not that far removed from when Mike Singletary, ruled, and people older than us, it's Dick Butkus. There was a time. I mean, there was a time, but I just look at this draft and I'm like, if I'm a GM in a room and I can take the second best tackle or a great stack linebacker, I'm taking. This whole league is based on finding a quarterback and then protecting him. That's the league. And most teams are spending their money on offense, not defense. So I look at Sonny Styles, I'm like, I think somebody's going to get a great, great player, but I think he's the guy that could potentially drop because of positional value. What say you?
Yeah. And also there are some teams that have been rumored, and I certainly know have fallen in love with some players that we aren't talking about in the top 10. Like, for instance, I think the Giants, with one of their first 2 picks, will take Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. Maybe even the 5th pick. I know that sounds wild. I know, but like I want to throw it out there. But to your point, someone's going to fall in love or trade up. Maybe Jeremiah Love is down a spot, or Bailey's down a spot, or Reese is down a spot, and people are moving up. And all of a sudden, this off-the-ball linebacker that you don't necessarily think has the positional value of other positions is falling down the board. But the thing about Sonny Styles that I really love is the fact that he's got safety in his background. And that's why I brought up Brian Urlacher, is because Brian Urlacher had safety in his background, remember, at Mexico, and then had that fluidity even as a great middle linebacker. So he could cover, he'd play that Tampa 2, and he was impactful all over the field. That's something that Sonny Styles can do. I don't know if they'll pull the trigger on this, but remember, Robert Saleh made a lot of hay as a defensive coach with Fred Warner. And I see a lot of Fred Warner and Sonny Styles, because he's going to be the captain of your defense right away. He's got athleticism for days. He can cover every blade of grass, in particular in the middle of the field. Just something that I just keep thinking in the back of my mind.
So I've said I like Fernando Mendoza more than all the execs I talk to. And I said, the problem you have is everybody is comparing him to NFL players. And I said, no, go over the last 5 years. Look at the 17 first-round quarterbacks. Compare him to those guys, not guys in the league. He hasn't played a pro game. If you go to the 17 first-round quarterbacks the last 5 years, make those his comps, I would absolutely take Caleb Williams and Drake May over him. The only 3 others I would consider taking over him are Jaden Daniels, and I worry greatly about his health, C.J. Stroud, who has regressed, but I still like him a lot, and Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. So if you go, when I hear, and the other thing I said is, so let's go look the last 5 years, not the NFL guys, the college guys. He's an elite prospect. Yeah. The second thing is, tell me he's Matt Ryan. I showed 3 pieces of video an hour ago. You could go through Matt Ryan's career and not find a run like this kid had against Miami. I showed this run. Find me the Matt Ryan run in the NFL that looks like this. Go find me the one against Penn State. So you keep telling me, people told me that Justin Herbert was mechanical. And I'm like, I don't know. I watched the Rose Bowl. He ran fine for me. I'm watching these runs. These are not Matt Ryan runs. I don't think of Matt Ryan. You know what I think of? A much less athletic Andrew Luck, which he's not Andrew Luck. But this looks like head down, don't care who I run into, doesn't bother me if I get a bloody lip. Multiple times he is running without a lot of concern about his body, and he's pulling away from defensive ends. That's not Matt Ryan to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and covered a lot of his games as well. And I thought that was one of the best attributes that he had, was his ability to run and pick up first downs. He did it a lot. And in particular, near the goal line, as you see some of those touchdown runs, and obviously the most famous one, 4th down. If he wasn't a quality runner, do you think Kurt Cignetti would have called a timeout, then gone for it on 4th down in the national championship game, then called a quarterback draw? Like, come on, right? Like, obviously he believes in his athleticism and ability to go pick up the first down, which he did, and then more into the end zone. All right, here's the thing. Here's a few things that I love about Mendoza. Let me go back to that list that you put up, all the other first-round quarterbacks in recent vintage. I would agree with you, like, as an overall prospect, Caleb Williams, maybe Jaden Daniels, Drake May, maybe Stroud, maybe you would take those guys. But as good as those guys have been at times, even in their careers in the National Football League, if I said, Colin, you have one series, it's the 4th quarter, you're on the road, who played better than Fernando Mendoza in those moments in college over the last 10 years? Nobody. So he's tough, he can run, he's accurate, he throws with great leverage. And then in the biggest moments of the season, and more specifically on the road, he was great. Yeah. Like perfect, like ice water in his veins. Great. Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Big Ten championship game, national championship. Then you go to this other aspect, and I've always talked about this with you, and that's when you look at the quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl this century. You go back to 2000, and you average out their college careers. Colin, it is clockwork. These guys have experience in their college careers. Did you know the quarterback that has won a Super Bowl in the last 25 years with the fewest college starts was actually Aaron Rodgers? And that's only because we don't count his junior college starts. The other two with very few number of college starts was actually Sam Darnold and Tom Brady. They were in the mid-20s. The average college career of the last 25 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks was an average of over 30 starts and over 1,000 passing attempts. That's exactly what Mendoza has. 35 starts, 1,000 passing attempts. So he's coming into the league, I think, perfectly suited and into a better situation than a lot of those other guys, in particular the ones that were selected with the first pick. Tell me an organization that has had the first pick in the draft in the last 10 years that is in a better spot than the Las Vegas Raiders. They signed Linderbaum up front. You've got Ashton Genty. You've got Brock Bowers. You've got a more stable ownership group. And I know that Tom Brady sees a lot of himself in Mendoza. So I think he's better suited than a lot of those guys to go in and have success.
Yep. Colton Miller back at left tackle. They picked up if you recall, they picked up the Vikings Naylor, that number 3 wide receiver, who's hyper explosive, really interesting player that you don't watch because of Jordan Addison and Jefferson. But it's like, and then they drafted a kid out of Texas, TCU last year. So I mean, I've said this before. It's the first time in 20 years that I'm really into the Raiders. I really like what I think their GM's a sharp dude. I think he is. Okay.
I would agree with that. With that.
NFL Network this weekend in Pittsburgh. Did you go out last night for dinner in Pittsburgh? How's Pittsburgh to go out?
Yeah, it was good. We went to this spot called Meat and Potatoes. Obviously you're in the Midwest, and it was delicious. I'm really looking forward to this draft, though. I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of intrigue. Look for a lot of movement. I do think Ty Simpson's going to get selected tonight in the first round. Maybe Cardinals trade back up to get him, but I really like Ty Simpson, and I think Ty Simpson's going to get selected tonight.
McShay said, keep your eye on the Rams in Simpson, because outside of right tackle, they don't have a ton of needs.
No, but I know they really love Mekhi Lemon, and if you've got Matt Stafford coming off an MVP year and you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of Devontae, let's face it, to think that Devontae is going to replicate what he was able to do a year ago, it might be a bit optimistic. So I don't know if the Rams would go Simpson, but Mekhi Lemon would certainly be in play. But for me, someone's going to fall in love with Ty Simpson. Again, the Cardinals make a lot of sense. In particular, they could trade that first pick in the second round that they have, get back into the 20s, and get him under a first round contract. I think that would be really big. And then the last thing I would just throw out there is this Jeremiah Love at 3. One of the only things that people have balked at, it's not him. It's the fact that if you select him in there in the top 3 or even with the third pick, let's say that the Cardinals do that, he's one of the top paid running backs in the league immediately. And from a cap issue, they've talked about that kind of hamstringing the cap issue moving forward for that organization.
Yeah, but if he's in Tennessee, for instance, you're not paying Cam Ward for 4 years. And I mean, I get the argument, but if a guy's great, it's hard to argue out a great.
Yeah. And if you think he's going to come in and give you like McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs style stuff,
1,300 yards and 6,
then you take it.
Yeah. I mean, all right. Joel Klatt, very exciting. He went to Meat and Potatoes last night. Man, that's our right. Meat and Potatoes.
A New York strip.
There you go. Good seeing you, bud.
You too. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here. College Football on Fox.